All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Family Finance Friday with DJ, the Money Coach, and Nick Westbrooks. And this show is brought to you by the DJ, the Money Coach team, and the Seven Spheres of Money system. And before we head to tonight's beach, hit the like button, share with at least 5 people, and hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you can become aware when these amazing and important conversations become available. And you can also help us spread the message and the good news of the Pom Pom Lifestyle Movement, which is plenty of money, peace of mind. And we invite you to come join us on the beaches of the world. And tonight's beach is content over everything, even character, in our year 2026. So before we get into it, check on my man DJ. How you doing tonight on this Friday?
Hey, Nick, as I always say, man, any day above ground is a great day. Today is no exception to the rule. We got our weather back, so I'm excited about that, man. As you can see, I'm in short sleeves out here, ain't all, bundled down and all that good stuff, able to feel the sunshine that came out. So we're excited about that, man. But hey, man, I'm excited about today's topic because, man, it is just crazy out here in this world of entertainment and media and all those good things. And it seems like everybody's an expert. Everybody's got something to say. So it's so funny. I'm so naive. Yeah, there you go. Plenty of money, peace of mind. But it's actually the reverse order. It's really, and I was just naive to this. I was like, man, I had I don't know what it was. I was watching some show and dude was like, yeah, man, COE, man, COE. I'm like, man, okay, what is COE? The dude was like, man, content over everything. Everything. Content over everything. And I said, wow, so the funny thing is you have everybody is out here chasing dollars. Thus, that's why content over everything becomes the imperative drive for any and everybody. Even reputable, platforms are supposed to be journalists and serious professionals. They don't even fact check things. They just jump out here. They want to be first, to the news cycle. Doesn't matter if they're right because they have to make sure that they're able to get the dollars from the ad companies to actually make money. So it's all driven by the big letter GREED, greed. As Gordon Gekko said in the historic movie, the original Wall Street, greed is good. That is the underlying purpose of content over everything, is all about greed. All about greed. So much so that your 60th Super Bowl, they're going to have a character that nobody in my world knows performing at the halftime show, and it's becoming more of a topic than the Super Bowl itself. And this person barely speaks English. How is that? But this person has 89 million followers, and that's the most important thing. And now the NFL has a kindness officer. A kindness officer, Nick. But guess what the connection to the kindness officer is? This guy has several millions of followers and has massive content. And for the NFL, they need to get eyeballs so they can continue to get these huge contracts from advertising corporations. Think about that. So people have gone to the point that their lives are public. The more scandal you can talk about, the more gossip, the more salacious something is. It's all a distraction because we have literally become like, what is that? What is it called when the snake eats itself? What's the word? Ouroboros or something like that? They have the picture of the snake eating itself. Mm-hmm. Capitalism has gotten to the point where it has no more resources of quality, that any and everything that is bad becomes the number one thing that people talk about. So we have thrown out character, which there's a saying, say, hey man, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We've done that now. Because any and everything that you see on these platforms, like I said, from what you would perceive as legitimate operations that spent tons of time, energy, resources to get educated and become a professional, have now thrown that out to just put anything on the platform that can get the attention of the next set of eyeballs. And that's indicative of the young guy we talked about last week, who signed the deal for $975 million. It's just content, and it's become a hyper competitive situation that if you ain't pushing content that is shock value, salacious, gossip, you're not getting eyeballs, and no eyeballs mean no marketing dollars, and no marketing dollars mean you're not in business. So now most reputable, distinguished programs that go on social media, they actually talk about things that you really need to know about that are not a distraction. They're not getting the attention as compared to all this crazy stuff, because at the end of the day, the new God is content over everything, which is void of character and morals. Because if it don't pay, we don't play. At the end of the day, that is the message that is going out to everybody. And unfortunately, that's going to raise the next generation of idiots. So we have now become a soft society that is eating itself from inside out, because we are constantly chasing, like the hamster on the treadmill, content for exchange to extract dollars from the elite 1%. And in exchange for that, we're allowing them to change the actual constitution of our society, because if you ain't making money, nobody cares. And the reality of it is that it's fooling the core of society, because guess what we're now starting to do? We're starting to neglect the fundamentals of becoming a solid citizen. We're not spending the time and effort to hunker down on a formal education. We're not spending the time and effort to hunker down on the basics of just being able to take care of yourself. The things that were a given growing up, there were certain things that you learned how to do to be a man, to be a woman, to be a good citizen of society. But now we're in a rush to get content over everything, because that content that excites the less intelligent, the less mature aspect of our community, the less aspect of our society, draws their attention, and that attention is creating data, and that data is tricking an algorithm, and that algorithm is telling the ad companies, hey, Here's where we can do what? Sell stuff. So now, very uneducated, less qualified people are making money because they can roll out silly, salacious, absurd, non-dignified stuff that attracts the heathen of our society and the less educated of our society to their attention. And that in exchange gets the ad dollars to keep rolling up. And all of a sudden, the experts, the educators like yourself, Nick, you get replaced by I Show Speed. Because I Show Speed, he can go to a planet and do stupid stuff and get 20, 30 million followers. And next thing you know, they want his opinion on who should be in office, who should balance the budget, the deficit. And you say, man, you got to be crazy. Really? Look at it. Who do they put up on the landscape when it comes to an election? Why are they always going to entertainers? Because those entertainers have tapped into a audience, and you have an audience of youngsters, 18, 25 years of age, that have no concept of what the Constitution is because they haven't read it since 8th grade, but they can get convinced to go down to the ballot box or not to sway or to get somebody elected. Because guess what they're all doing? They're all trying to fill their time with salacious, non-valuable stuff in pursuit of, I got to get the bag. And the way to get the bag is to become a content creator. And if I create the right kind of content that is funny, gossipy, salacious, I'm going to get people to stop and watch my channel, subscribe, and I get these subscriptions. I'm automatically going to start getting what? Ad dollars. So right now, the biggest televised event in American history happens on Sunday. You're going to have probably, 300-400 million people watching. And globally, you're probably going to have 1 billion people watching a show that has undermined our society to change the narrative of our character, pushing things that just 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago would be considered aberrant, deplorable, despicable. And now everybody's in uproar, and now they're going to tell you that we don't even have value. Us. You had idiots at the shows that are irrelevant now. What shows that we don't watch anymore that people think are so big and great? The Grammys, the Oscars, just nothing but trash. It reminds me of a movie that came out with Dustin Hoffman, the dog wagged the tail. What's the name of the movie? Wag
the dog.
Yep, Wag the Dog's Tail, where everything was made up, just like the Truman Show.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. They're showing you on these platforms a false narrative, but if you don't read and you don't get a proper education, or you're not taught how to become a man or a woman properly, you're going to believe that Wag the Dog's Tail or the Truman Show is actual reality. And that they said, if you tell a lie long enough, you start to believe the lie itself. So when they start doling out these awards and everything, and now they start letting Hollywood take over the platforms. They're doing a full show. So they have the NFL awards, which is, one of the top prestigious award shows in athletics. They had it as a Hollywood campaign. You had all these actors announcing these, major awards and messing up stuff. And now it even has boiled down to they have idiots on platforms with colored hair mispronouncing people's names on purpose and making it sound like the N-word. And they call that quality television, Nick. But guess what? They got a ton of views. They can get the splices and get more content. And more content leads to more dollars. So much so, Nick, Charlemagne the God just signed a deal for $200 million. To do what? To create what? More trash. It's literally the saying, one man's trash is another man's gold. This is what we've come to. Imagine that. A guy who goes on a platform, who talks about a whole bunch of nothing, has a co-host who's a Caucasian that has numerous times used the N-word and has been accused of rape. People in our community would never see the front of the community, now leading the community. And now this guy signs a contract for $200 million. And tell me on anything that he does that you actually can change the world for the better. However, most of the stuff that he does, you have these young, naive minds being filled up with straight garbage. And now those young minds are going out and say, oh man, I have to be the next this idiot. I have to be the next that idiot. Or I have to take off all my clothes and get eyeballs to make money. And now instead of calling a hoe what a hoe is, oh, those are sex workers. They have rights too. Really? Now we're changing the narrative on a lot of stuff that was taboo, forbidden, into the norm. So there's a paraphrase in the Bible that says, hey, for all we have to do to allow evil to prevail and win is for good men and good women to stand silent. And eventually, all that was principally good becomes bad, and all that was principally bad becomes good. So we now kneel at the altar of COE because COE equals GREED. And as long as we continue to allow this garbage to occur, we're going to be a dumber and a most vulnerable society, especially right here in the United States. So much so that the orange-faced guy in the White House, he puts out a video depicting the Obamas as apes. Just earlier today, in a little spoof. Amazing. But again, oh man, that's funny. Oh man, look at all the views it went viral. Now it went viral. Next thing you know, oh man, I'm getting a bag. We have become the epitome of reality television. That's what people are chasing. They will get on TV, put a mic in a camera, you would have thought that the Jersey Shores would never have been something big. Remember when that program came out, everybody was, man, that's straight garbage. Now that is the model for success in America. I remember when that show came out, that was about 20 years ago, and Italians, man, were just they were pissed off about that show being on MTV. It was like, that's not what the Italian community is like. We condemn that trash. But now everybody gets on TV. I'm watching a little clip that came to me, guy that I don't care about, Joe Budden. And he goes from being a nobody to like, yeah, man, I just tell my story and how I get up. And we applaud these cats being entertainers who make money by just showing how much of idiots they are, uneducated, non-dignified they are, tatted up to the wazoo. But again, they found an audience of non-educated people who are basically, Nick, lazy. But you know what? I can do stupid stuff. And if that stupid stuff can get views and it's considered content and it goes viral, I can get somebody out there to sponsor me. And the underlying belly is of the dragon is most of the dollars that are being spent on this content comes from the deadly sins, the gambling industry. How is it now that it is not a shock to the system when you see athletes on a regular basis promoting gambling? LeBron James, as a professional basketball player, he's promoting DraftKings with Kevin Hart. You would have never seen Michael Jordan do that, albeit Michael Jordan had some, gambling in his, private life, but he would never go on a platform and promote a gambling app for the sake of a dollar bill. Remember when Charles Barkley had his ad with Nike, the one that was controversial, and he said, I'm not a role model. And everybody got on him. He was like, hey, man, I'm not responsible to raise your kids. And he was actually right. But guess what? That's now what's happening because everything is driven by you got to have some content. And guess what? Here are the guidelines to go viral because that's what everybody wants to do. How do we take it viral? Look at what's right now happening. Now, here's the funny thing. We lead the culture across the landscape. Whatever we're doing in our culture that comes hot, sexy, whatever. Mind you, what I said, whatever comes hot, sexy, entertaining value, it becomes part of American culture. You now have a situation that just keeps growing bigger and bigger like an avalanche in the community that's spilling over into the other communities. This deal with the two people, Daniels and Holcomb, you would have thought that thing would have died down by now. It's just continued, man. I looked up, had a clip from a white platform talking about it. But guess what? Here it is. We got two people, ignorant, belligerent, cross the line. They used to be in war. Things were off limits. You don't kill women and children. Now it is acceptable as collateral damage to talk about people's families, their wives, their young children. Because guess what, Nick? Did it sell? Here's another great movie. Old school movie. You're going to love this. The Network. You remember that movie? You and I have a background and everything was about chaos and everything. Man, that's a classic. how news and stuff was created. You go back, ladies and gentlemen, watch that. But it doesn't shock me is that, man, one of the greatest things to ever happen is that Satan has convinced us that he does not exist. And anything goes. You would have never thought that the stuff that they put on these platforms now would ever be accepted. But everywhere you look now, man, trash, trash, trash equals cash, cash, cash. And at the end of the day, forget, here's the excuse that they use now, Nick. See, when we grew up, man, there was certain things, man, that if it happened in the community and it ashamed and it made your family look bad, man, dude, we sent people off to Siberia. If you had that cousin or relative that unfortunately somebody knew that they like to touch little kids, dude, that person got sent off to Siberia, end up in a landmine somewhere. If you had, that cousin or aunt or uncle who slipped out and got hooked on the drugs, man, that person got sent to Siberia. If you had the young lady in the family that accidentally got pregnant at a young age, that person was shipped down south to auntie, uncle, most likely Nana, and they took care of the kid, and the kid became the responsibility of the older, mature adult. And actually, they didn't even know that, who they thought was their sister or their cousin is actually a parent, because there was a certain level of dignity and respect in the community that you didn't allow that stuff to be put on Front Street. But now that's the stuff that they want. And they get you by using this ageless excuse. It's not illegal. It's not illegal, Nick. We have massaged the rules so much so that once we went across the precipice of the Rubicon and we made things legal that were illegal and unethical and immoral in the book of Christ and the book of God, now that's everybody's go-to to justify, hey man, it's not illegal. I can't go to jail for it. So what's the problem? It almost comes down to the point where you can't tell the difference between the upper class and the lower class because everybody's selling the same trash to get content over everything, because that content goes viral, and that viral platform that consistently produces this trash with massive eyeballs draws massive ad campaigns. So now there have what is known, I guess, in the TikTok world, ASMR. That anything that I can get to get your senses clicked in to, wow, it's a trigger. It's a science. Again, man, haven't heard of stuff, these terms and stuff. And I'm looking up here, and now all of a sudden, guess what? They have a saying, when a major crime of financial aspect happens, or even when a lot of times, when they show, like I watch Dateline, and it's all about crime, murders, and stuff like that. They say the two things you can always depend on: greed and follow the money. So in this world, you have new technogards. So behind the biggest new characters who now they're putting up on the platform to be famous, most of them are represented, Nick, by the same company. CAA. You have people out here have not even graduated from college, yet alone high school, becoming the next important person for you to follow with your morals and your ethics and your principles, because they have influence. Can't tell you nothing about anything, can't tell you about the preamble. Can't tell you that, hey, do you know we don't live in a democratic society in the United States. We live in a republic. But I got to get content, and I got to go viral, and I got to get monetized. So whatever that takes to do, I'm going to do. If it's to talk about my family, wear hardly no clothes, use profanity every word out of my mouth, that's what I'm going to do. Because you know what, Nick? It's content over everything, baby. Character is not a requisite. Morals is legal, so we can do it. So I was watching this one program where a guy's a really good expert on quarterbacks, but his co-host, unfortunately, young guy, looks like us, every other word out of his mouth is profanity. And it's like, hey, man, you're 30 years old. Do you talk that way around your parents, around your wife? Or do you not realize that you have become a caricature of the stereotypical dumbass athlete? I once was told, profanity is ignorance made audible. Profanity is ignorance made audible, because you lack the ability to articulate without profanity is the reason why you cannot use other words. Profanity is ignorance made audible. So to gloss over your lack of education, your lack of command of the English language, your lack of vocabulary, guess what I'm going to insert? I'm going to insert some profanity, and I'm going to be flamboyant or hyper loud and entertain you when I can't even discuss a normal topic in depth. And now everybody does it. And you can look how powerful content over everything is. Look at your reputable shows. You know, let's say like Forbes. Let's say like 60 Minutes. Let's say like, science programs. Look at what happens in the general population on these social platforms that becomes viral, and everybody's talking about how it spills over into their world, and they start talking about it. You now have people telling everybody, so much so, how important it is for us to, make sure that immigrants are treated right and this, that, and the other. They also overlooking the fact that a lot of these people have come into this country illegal. But because this is a tool, Nick, that really, for the people who are really pulling the strings, Nick, that created the platform for COE to be the driving force to dummy down America is that it is a distraction while they rob, pillage, and steal away the most important thing of value that the Constitution tells us. You have the inalienable right from God to be free. The inalienable right. So now what happens? The government can say, hey, things are getting out of hand over here. For your protection, we need to take some of your freedoms away and let Big Daddy become your daddy. Did we not see that with welfare? Back in the 60s, beginning really heavily in the mid 70s, when they say, hey, guess what, Mom? You don't need a husband in the house. Let Daddy, government, come in, smack you a check. And the only way you get that check is that you can't have a man present in your house. What did that do to our community? We went from 80% marriages in our community, two-parent households, had nothing to do with income, Nick. This was moral-driven, conservative belief systems. Have the respect for your name on the back of your jersey, to now that check, that EFT, whatever they call it, card, to now we have 75% of single family homes run by children, raising children for what? For the bag. So now you have the same thing happen here, man. Insidious. Because it's a quiet killer. I remember in high school, they used to talk about, the victimless crimes. They would talk about crimes that don't really harm society on the surface. And one of them was prostitution. One of them was drugs. It was like, these crimes, they're victimless. And because people are not going out and just killing people over this stuff, these crimes really, they're not going to really harm us on the surface. But the reality is, they slowly but surely take away everything that you value in life, which is given to you as a United States citizen, is free. Your freedom. So now I don't read books. I don't get a basic fundamental education. Think about this, Nick. In the 30s, the 40s, the average person who graduated from 8th grade could actually run a household to raise high-end, high moral, high character men and women. They talk about our generation, my generation, the Gen Xers. They talk about being the latchkey kids. But you know what the great thing about that, Nick, is that even though you may have come home to an empty house as a latchkey kid, you were taught independence in a good way, responsibility, accountability. Be self-sufficient. Know how to do things. Change a tire. Change a light bulb. Fix a leaky faucet. Cut some grass. Cook a meal. You have people right now, kids who, man, they don't even know how to cook ramen noodles. I'm going to get Uber Eats, this eats, that stuff. So in the process of them being constantly entertained because they miss the basics of being raised in the fundamentals, they used to call it what? What was it? The 3 R's? Reading, math and arithmetic, the 4-H club. So we are all falling prey to this. And the excuse is, hey man, I don't want my son or my daughter having it as hard as I had it. And now you have, I don't even know what the generation is called, Nick, that you teach in high school. What is that generation called? Other than lost, stupid. Those people constantly, oh man, my grandmother told me a story about she had to walk 5 miles, and man, that's crazy. We have created from the puppet master an inept society dependent on everything except for ourselves. And the sad part about it, Nick, is we have become selfish driven. And in the process become selfish driven, we have become useless and replaceable by what? AI and the robotic world that's been sprung upon us slowly but surely. Because guess what? You don't need that stuff. You need content over everything, and we'll get you the bag. And the reality is that since you don't know the statistics behind people who succeed in this market, here's the one thing that never changes. This is the reason why I love math. It's empirical science. 1 times 1 is always going to be 1. 5 times 5 is 25. So when you look at the numbers, Nick, across the landscape, especially in our community, back in the 1900s, we as a society of all the wealth only owned about 5% of it, Nick. 5%. Now you would say, man, based on the advent of technology, access to information like we never had before, and a millionaires being made every day, you would think because of our competitive drive and ability to overcome as a community, man, we would own at least the percentage of what we make up in the populace. I think right now, out of 350 million people in the United States, we represent about 13%. You would think we would own at least 13% of the wealth in the United States. Man, we barely own 3%. But we create trillions of dollars, ladies and gentlemen, in the economy based off content over everything. So I had my sister sent me a link that AI, the grandfather of AI, Nick, is a black man. Literally named Blackwell, because NVIDIA has a tendency to name their microchips after amazing scientists. So they just came out with a most powerful microchip ever, and they're proud. The Asian CEO of NVIDIA says, hey, this year we're naming this chip the Blackwell. A black man. And I told my sister, I said, you know what, sis, do me a favor. Stop sending me stuff like that. And here's why, Nick. Because for every time they send us that, you got to remember, man, you and I both, television backgrounds in college, right? Production, I was broadcast journalism, television production. They tell you, what is the purpose of a storyboard, Nick? What is the purpose of you putting a storyboard together? What is the purpose for you, the creator, to have the audience? What's the purpose of a storyboard, Nick?
Well, from what I remember, the storyboard was that was your planning. That was your outline for what you wanted to produce on the screen.
And the production, what is the purpose of it to the audience? Why did they forbid and make illegal subliminal messages in Europe and then in America? Because what does storyboard do at the end of the day to the mind?
It influenced the mind. Yeah, influence people to make decisions or think certain types of way, whether it's consciously or subconsciously.
And what do they call on television when you put shows together each day of the week? What do they call it in television? What do they call it?
Programming.
Programming.
Yeah.
Programming. So, ladies and gentlemen, the storyboard, I remember this, man. I had my television 101 production class, and he said, hey, no, it was the director's class. I had a director's class with my professor. His name was Steve Jones. He worked for WGN TV, which was the superstation for Chicago. He said, hey, man, this assignment, you're going to be directing a newscast as your first shout out, and we want you to storyboard it. And what we want you to do is tell us what program you want the audience to learn to change the way they think. Man, I said, what? He said, yeah, so your grade, it ain't going to be about, hey, camera 2, camera 3, go to smooth this, let's do that. No, tell me how these people that watch this show are going to behave after. I want you to illustrate it and demonstrate and articulate it on what your storyboard is going to have them being programmed on how you want them to think. And then I got my first film class, and they started telling us, hey, man, when they come out with the movie poster, you remember movie posters used to be big, right? With trailers. I can tell you the ending of the movie by breaking down the psychology of the movie poster. It's a storyboard. And to show you how powerful this is, ladies and gentlemen, when Spike Lee jumped on the scene, and this is a version of content, but this is a version of content under control and how dangerous it is. Spike Lee used to always get pushback because at the end of his movies, he didn't give you a predictable ending. You remember that, Nick? And they said, man, why don't you tell us how the movie is supposed to end? He said, well, I purposely have the movie just end with no predictable ending. And I'll give you an example. So if you start out a basic movie, you have a protagonist and antagonist. And you have a hero who's the protagonist. And even though the hero goes through a lot of crap and gets beat up, you know at the end, he overcomes or she overcomes, and it's a good ending. What typically happens in a romantic comedy? The guy gets out, he stumbles and bumbles, but at the end, you always know he gets the girl. It's predictable. But Spike's movies would never end like that. He said, guess what? Because I want you to think for yourself how the ending of this movie happens in your world. So he took the power of programming to change people's narratives and said, you know what? I'm not going to lord over somebody because this is a dangerous tool. It's all programming. So what is content over everything when the ad company, the agencies, they give you the program how to make viral videos based on the algorithm so that you can get paid. And now, if you knew that, hey man, nothing put into your mind can be removed permanently. I'm going to say that. Nothing put into your mind can be removed permanently. It can only be diluted, Nick. So if I know as the puppet master, I can distract you, entertain you on silly stuff, you won't have time, or better yet, you won't have the attention span to hunker down to read The Grapes of Wrath. To read The War of the Roses. To read your Constitution. Because now it's too hard. But you can pull this thing out with all the notifications and know they want you to get to, they say, hey man, once you start doing this, you can't stop doing it. It's scientific. Instead of, man, picking up a book, and now you got to get a book that has big pictures and stuff in it because you can't comprehend because you don't have the attention span. That's the power, Nick, of content over everything, because at the end of the day, it is purposely taking away the two most powerful things that God has given you, which are free. The ability to think and your personal freedoms, which are inalienable rights passed down to you from your creator. But if I get you to stop turning on the most important real estate on the planet, the 6 inches between your ears, and I can say, hey, you know what? Yep, the world is a lot more dangerous. The world is a lot more harder to navigate. Why don't you let me, Big Daddy, government, pharma, gambling agencies, give you some stuff, take the stress off of your back and put some dollars and let us take over this. And in exchange, I'm going to eliminate a little bit more of your freedom. But while you're doing that, hey, you can still get that lottery ticket, content over everything. Hey, as long as you lack character, you can do scandalous things that typically were moral, unethical, but because we have changed the rules, they're now legal. So you've always been told growing up, keep your business in your own house. Don't put your business out on Broad Street. You've heard that one before, right? No. Hey, man, gossip. Gossip. Talk about silly stuff. Get on OnlyFans. Do salacious things. This is a hyper-competitive market, but if you do this, this will go viral. That'll trigger the algorithm, and boom, you will have companies lined up. The victimless crime companies, betting, prostitution, drugs. It's so much so, Nick, that they used to, check this out, they used to, when they first started telling you about these betting apps and everything, what would you used to see, or even the drug commercials, at the end of the commercial, what would they always tell you? They would say what to you?
And they would run down the side effects.
The side effects, and then what they would also do in gambling. Hey, if you know somebody has a gambling problem, they will put the 1-800 number on the bottom. And this caught me the other day. I'm watching a political show, and I'm shocked. They got a draft picks or some type of, and no 1-800 number. No, hey, call this agency, just like they would do with suicide. Dude, they have slowly but surely eliminated that. Mm. And now what they say, hey, these are my picks. I'm not saying these are your picks. It's just like, remember when we first started our program, we used to say, these are not us trying to give you financial advice, Remember we used to always say that? But because you're not paying attention, they just eliminated that from the video. So now you have no way to protect yourself because you have now lost your ability to think. They're saying, hey, man, it's called influencer for a simple reason, influencer. But hey, I'm not telling you to follow me. And here's the great thing about it, Nick, which is the most egregious thing. What does it require, Nick, from a, well, let me ask you this. Nick, in order to practice and become a teacher, what do you have to have that the average layman does not have, even though they may know just as much as you know? What is the one thing that separates you from them to actually teach in the school systems that you teach?
I have a teaching license.
Man, say that again, brother.
I have a license for teaching from the state that I teach in.
Guess what? Here's the beauty and the danger of the internet. And the reason why the elitists figured this out. It's just like the sales industry, brother. Mm-hmm. No license required.
Yep.
No license required, no registrations, no certifications. It's Ali Oxford. Everybody can get out there and get it, because guess what? You too can become a star. And all we did is took away the things that will prevent you from getting in the game, because we know it's a numbers thing. But what we do know, what we never tell you, is that guess what? Only professionals make it. There's still work required, ladies and gentlemen. There's still systems required. And this is the reason why content over everything is dangerous, because the buffoons that they put up on these platforms are not intelligent. You know what they are? They have some type of talent that they are picked out of an audience and say, hey, we're going to polish this person's act up and we're going to tell them what to do, but we're going to have them focus their 10,000 hours on their buffoonery. And over time, they're going to get better. But you don't have to go to 8 years of elementary school and get a graduation diploma. You don't have to go to 4 years of high school and get a high school diploma. And you damn sure don't have to get accepted into a college, a reputable college, and get a degree. And then in order to really be a professional, get a graduate degree. Because now here's the competition, Nick. Here it is. You have candidate A who's done all of that. And now they're trying to get into the top school. Let's call it engineering. And they got straight A's. But for some reason, they're not a great test taker. So instead of getting a 1,500 on the SAT, they get a 1,350. So they don't get into MIT. They don't get into RIT. And they want to be engineers, or they don't get into the engineering school at UT. So now they get what? Discouraged. But character B goes on this internet, plays around in school, but they spending time making stupid videos, and all of a sudden one goes viral and they get a bag, no certifications, no license, no regulatory constraints. And now this person gets fast forwarded into success, while this person over here, Nick, is struggling, doing everything right. So how do you blame this person for saying, hey, man, there's a shortcut? Let me take the shortcut like character B did and get the bag, because I'm more intelligent, I'm more professional, and I can do that too. But that barrier to business has been eliminated because there are no regulatory laws. How is it that the government was so concerned about taxing everything on the internet, but they're not concerned about regulating influencers, Nick? Think about it. When the internet, ladies and gentlemen, first jumped off, you didn't have to pay sales tax. And the government took 3-5 years to figure out how to legally tax everybody, because what? They want to get that money. But guess what? They're not regulating the content that's put freely on the internet. Now, the content that they do regulate is the one that has moral values. You can drop the N-word, the F-bomb, sex traffic, sex workers, but let you say something about the alphabet mafia. Let you say something about illegal immigrants. And now all of a sudden, the powers that be, the techno companies who created the requisite for content over everything, and they partners who actually are the handlers to find the fools, they will shut down your platform. What they call it, shadow something?
Shadow ban.
Shadow ban. But they know you're so inept because you lack a formal education. We're never going to have to be concerned about Bozo with the colored hair who goes on a platform, now has national campaign commercials for T-Mobile. Now a presenter at the NFL awards doing buffoonery. Then doing spoofs about the church. And you now, oh man, you're just hating. What I'm hating because he's leading the uneducated down. What they say, the path to hell is wide. It'll be easier for a camel to pass through an eye of a needle than a rich man. Now, just like Malcolm X said, you're going to have athletes and entertainers leading our community on most important things. And voila, what do you have now? Because the powers that be, the technocrats who created these platforms, and you would think it's a whole bunch of them. It's only a handful, brother. Facebook changed their name to Meta purposely so they can change the imagery of what they were really about. Think about it. So at first, people weren't getting on TikTok. Man, that's some stupid stuff, dude. I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, I'm coming out of a restaurant and I see this little girl got her thing posted up and she's doing these silly dances. I'm like, so her parents let her come out here. Dude, it's like 10 o'clock at night, bro. I'm coming outside of a really, middle high-end restaurant, and here this little black girl, she's doing videos with the little light and everything. This is about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I'm saying to them, I said, man, I would beat my child's ass. They out here doing that silly stuff. Fast forward, everybody named mama to the tune of $975 million for a kid who was 20 years old, factory worker, dumb as a bag of bricks, but had creativity given to him by who? The creator. Is he doing anything to, change the world to make it better? Did he create some new drug or found some new technology to actually make our lives better, live longer, live healthier? No. He tapped into his natural genius of creativity to create any and every type of content. Say, what degree I need to do this, Nick? I'm 26 years old. Would you allow that person to run the legislative branch? The executive, well, I guess we might as well because we already got one in office. Think about it. The person in office, second term, known for what? Doing a lot of scandalous things. was a celebrity because he was on a television show saying, "You're fired." But he followed the model of the other president. Ronald Reagan was a Hollywood actor. Isn't this amazing? So why and how can I protect this house when I'm competing against this pervasive, insidious, odorless toxin called content over everything? And guess what? Nobody is 100% protected from it. They're doing right because, unfortunately, youth is always looking for the easy way out and looking for the independence, Nick. See, that's the other thing. So it's three things. We're going to leave you with this. This is how it's actually getting into the good homes. Because the one thing that's good about the younger generation is, hey man, I can be independent, my own boss. That's great. But it requires you to learn structure and systems and work ethics to become independent, because that broke down the corporate structure that has manipulated and used people for generations. So the advent of technology is showing you, hey man, I can be independent, be my own self. So you now have three things working for you and against you. One, that person says, man, I can be independent. I don't have to be regulated. But the creator of the system says, hey, I'm going to stop you from thinking. And in the process of doing that, you think you're independently doing this stuff and creating this content and you're making money, that you're free? You're not. Because what do we know, Nick? Let them say something that the COE creator does not want that message for you to be programmed, and they do what? They cut off your platform. And what they also know, Nick, is that easy money, easy come, easy go, because you're not doing what? Putting money aside for a rainy day, because you think that this money is going to constantly come in, because you're always going to be able to create stupid, salacious, non-dignified stuff that'll get people to laugh, and you will get somebody to give you a bag. So when they're tired of your antics and your stick, they will just shut you down, vilify you. And because you're on this platform telling all your business, they can touch you whenever they want to. So you, in exchange, think that you're free. You're not, because they know everything about you. And when they want to take their new toy, AI, which is almost impossible to tell reality from fake, they can burn down your house just as fast as they allowed you to build it. And that just leads into the three little pigs with the big bad wolf. So, ladies and gentlemen, next time you get your notification, somebody send you something and you start laughing at something, ask yourself a question. When's the last time you picked up a book, read it, and shared with that young person in your house, hey, you know what? This is great, but we do have rules of class, dignity in our house that we're not going to go and do for the sake of creating content, for the sake of you're going to go viral, for the sake of you're going to get a bag, because you're going to justifiably rep the name on the back of the jersey with dignity, which has nothing to do with something to make money just because it's legal. And you have to ask yourself a question. Hey, man, don't pass on the information because you're responsible. And this is the reason why you have the polar opposites, Nick. So just like I was saying, I'm telling my sister, and I didn't finish. Here's why I say don't send me the information about us crates. I said, because guess what? None of those people that you send us information on that have created all these amazing technologies and scientific innovations and everything like that own those technologies at all. Zero, Nick. And subconsciously, what message is that actually telling our good young minds, girls and boys? You can create it, but you never own it. So I can't advocate for those anymore. And that's what struck me, Nick. I'm like, wow, it doesn't surprise me. But you know what? Guess what? What do we own? Where's the equity and ownership? So what's the value of sending that to me? Because that opposite message to the other community is, oh yeah, we don't have to bust our brains. Let them make it and we take it. And that's the reason why, Nick, when you are sitting down as a young boy, a young girl, 5, 6, 7 years of age, and your brain is being formulated for the rest of your life, if you're sitting down at the TV and you see the rocket going into space and the person that's driving the rocket looks like an adult version of you, you don't have to be told that, hey, I'm the ruler of the world. But if you're that same kid that's black and you're sitting down in front of these programs and you saying these silly people make silly stuff and not doing anything of value, you're saying, oh, I can do that to get paid, but I can't be the president. I can't be, the head of NVIDIA. So what does that do for them? That lessens the competition. And at the end of the day, one of the things that we, revel in is that we are taught that the American way is a system of meritocracy. It's not. It's a system of nepotism. And it's a system of good old boy, it's who you know. Case in point, we ended this on Super Bowl weekend. 10 NFL coach vacancies have all just been filled by 10 white people. Well, 10 white people and 1 Lebanese. Think about that. A Lebanese person is a head coach for a system of slavery, which 75% of the on-field talent are black men, allowing themselves to beat themselves up while the master keeps and owns everything. The ownership. And that's the reason why, Nick, I'm not going to, from this day forth, even though it's something that we created, I'm not passing it along. If I can't pass along that person that created owns it, that industry, it's not getting passed on for me. Because going back to the storyboard, what's going to be in that young mind? Wow. I don't own anything, but for a short period of time, I can have some fun and then I'll be non-existent. You don't have to tell them that. We're so smart that we get it. So the sneaky system, content over everything, bro. And here's the irony of it, Nick. You would think that Hollywood and now Influence Wood is the biggest economic driver in the industry. It's not. You know who's making the money in the real bag? The kid who's creating the AI. The kid who's creating the Bitcoin software makes 100 times more money than them. And that's the secret right there. Did you hear? So again, If you want to have real success, you have to conquer the hard things, the fundamentals of life, the fundamentals of building money the right way. And then life gets easier. You want to have the shortcut to the shortcut and master the easy stuff, which is content over everything. You're going to have a worse life as you get older, because when they click the switch, or that trend, which was a fad, is no longer entertaining, you are non-existent. You're yesterday's trash now. And because we know you don't manage your money and you don't have the proper stewardship, we're not concerned about you, because we just took you off the real playing field of life, is being an equity and owner, because I ain't got to compete with you. And you don't know nobody in my world to even get an opportunity to get in the door to actually participate for a high-end position of equity and ownership. Isn't that amazing? Content over everything. Devoid of character. Promotes scandal, gossip, salaciousness. It's a distraction, and it's a hyper-competitive world, but still those winners are chosen by the people who created the system. So what it should be called is cancel out everything. And the most important three things are going to be taken from you: your ability to think, your freedom, and your independence. So we thank you for watching Family Finance Friday, because this stuff matters. Content over everything, even your character, is the most insidious, egregious platform ever created, because it's really showing you that everybody can have a lottery ticket. And in essence, it's telling you you don't have to do any real work. You can be a buffoon, a court jester, and a comedian, and we will applaud you, but we don't know the math that those people that you're seeing, they're one out of every 4 or 5 million people that make it. And the rest of them, they look like the streets of San Francisco. Isn't it ironic that the Super Bowl is in San Francisco, and San Francisco has a litany of homeless and drug paraphernalia, just like Oakland and just like major cities? They cover all that stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. That's why they storyboard it like the Truman Show. They come in with the cast, the costume, and the graphic designs and everything, and they make it look all pretty. And then boom, they pull back the curtain and just garbage. So next time somebody in your family is so adamant that they're going to be a content creator and they're going to become an influencer, hey, here's what I challenge you to say. Man, you know what? I applaud you. I'm going to support you, but let's make sure that you have your college education in the STEM technology world, that when this doesn't work or it doesn't go the way you want, you still have some technical 21st skills that clown does not. And most importantly, let's make sure that you have a money market account for emergency fund. Let's make sure you have your Roth IRA. Let's make sure that you have mutual funds, dividends. Let's make sure that you own real estate, things that you can fall back on when this stuff is either canceled out or you're no longer willing to drop your morals, your ethics, and your character to chase the bag and be content over everything. So we appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, and share. And let's raise the bar like we used to on who we're going to applaud and who we're going to hold in highest esteem, like the Nick Westbrooks of the world. And let's celebrate real educators who had to get licensed, who had to go to 4 years of college, who went to graduate school and graduated and did it the right way, because in the long term, those are the people who are going to actually have value to change our society for the better. And these clowns will be the ones who will help rush us down the wide path to hell. And like I was always told, it's nothing worse than you going to hell, but your kids meeting you there because you led the wrong example. I'm DJ the Money Coach, and as I say, I am my ancestor. Let's go get plenty of money and peace of mind the right way, and come travel with us on the Beaches of the World Club called Family, Values, Morals, and Ethics, versus trying to create content over everything for the sake of a lottery ticket, which easy come, easy go. They say a fool and his money will always part. The amazing thing is, how did the money and him get together in the first place? You guys have a great night. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
Have you heard of the Pom Pom Suites at the Soul in Zanzibar? If not, let me put you on. It's located inside a dreamy residential resort right in the heart of Paje, close to all the best shops and restaurants. I spent 5 days and 4 nights, and the vibe was immaculate. The property is lush, tropical, and so peaceful. And the lagoon-style pool, OMG, absolutely obsessed. Definitely a highlight. I love that it wasn't too deep, so I felt comfortable swimming, cooling off, relaxing, just living my best Zanzibar life. Some days I grabbed freshly made mango juice from the bakery, which has pastries, coffee, tea, and a variety of options for lunch. And can we talk about the super cute welcome center? I couldn't get enough of the tropical chic decor, literally the perfect spot to chill and unwind. The Pom Pom Suites have tons of room options too, from cozy studios to spacious apartments. I stayed in a 1-bedroom unit, and it was giving all the modern, stylish, and hella comfortable vibes. But the real MVP, my personal chef. Every morning, I got freshly made breakfast, eggs, sausage, fresh fruit, and one night she made a barbecue feast. We're talking grilled goat, pilau rice, fresh salad, and homemade juice. Let's just say I ate good. So if you're looking for a beautiful, relaxing, and unique stay in Zanzibar, Pom Pom Suites at the Soul Paje is it. Let me know in the comments if you would like to stay here, and I'll DM you all the deets.
Out everything. We're going to give you a master training, 3-hour course, 2 consultations. We're going to teach you how to build credit up to $100,000 interest-free for 18 months. Pay off your home in 7 to 10 years. And most importantly, pay $8,333 a month. Passive income. It's a $997 course. You get it all today for $97. Hit that link and beat me